I'm Diego Cortez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And today we have Matt Affleck with us. And out of all the World Series coverage, even more than the winner, Matt Affleck may be the most notable name.
It's the story of the year.
It is
the way
story.
That Matt.
The year before, he's one of the chip leaders. This year, he's one of the chip leaders. He takes a horrendous beat.
One of the worst beats in the history of poker.
And for a huge amount of equity. And he handles it like a gentleman. And he looks to the future. But we want to ask him about the whole gamut of emotions that he must have gone through. So we want to learn a lot more about you and your many successes. But everyone really knows you from the main event this year. Because, in fact, in all of ESPN's coverage, that might have been the most dramatic moment. Anyone who's played poker and understands you've gotten to the final two tables of the main event, you've got an enormous number of chips, you get involved in a hand with another mega stack where whoever wins this hand is going to have virtual control of the tournament, certainly a chance to have a run all the way to the end, and you take a horrible beat. Now, I think a lot of people have seen it, but for people who haven't seen it, if it doesn't pain you too much, maybe you can walk us through, and also walk us through what you were thinking as you made your moves, because it was an interesting hand. I mean, people are used to the big stacks avoiding each other, and you're against Duhamel, who ended up winning the tournament. He's got pocket jacks, which is a fine hand, but a hand that you may not put your entire tournament at risk when you have a huge stack with 15 or 16 players left. So how'd it go?
I think Duhamel started the hand with about 27 million, and I had about 20 or 21 million. We were at, I think it was 120, 240, 100,000, I think 240,000 big blind. So it just seems absurd to just say that you can play in a tournament that gets to 120, 240,000 blinds.
Especially when you start with 30,000 and
yeah.
you worry about every chip.
I had 500,000 at my peak, and I thought that was a lot. Probably 240,000 blinds.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, I folded around him to the cutoff. He opened a standard 500,000, I think. I have aces on the button, so it's like dream situation. He opens the cutoff, and he's not going to give my 3-bet any respect. So I make a standard 3-bet to 1.4 million. And even before I 3-bet, I was pretty sure Duhamel was going to 4-bet his entire opening range versus me, just because I'm another big stack and I really can't go bust to him there. So,
had you had skirmishes against each other? Cause
we hadn't played before the final two tables, so we'd only been playing together for like hour and a half, and we'd played some small pots together, and he was playing really passive versus me out of position. I had direct position on him, so we played a lot of pots where he check folded to me. He was the raiser, I'd flat. I hadn't 3-bet him yet, and so he'd raise, I'd flat, and then he'd check fold the flop, or we'd check it down. So it was nothing. We were definitely playing really passive against each other. So I 3-bet him on the button, and I think he was kind of expecting it to happen. I was expecting him to 4-bet, and I knew I was like, I'm going to flat his 4-bet basically, because he's going to be 4-betting a lot of hands that are going to fold all my 5-bet shoves. And at the time, I really only think he's going to get it in with kings and queens, and you know, in that situation, you might even find a fold with ace-king. I haven't played with him that long before that, so that was my thought process in the hand. So I 3-bet to 1.4 million, somewhere around there, I think. And like I thought at the time, he makes it, I think it was like 3-9 and change. So pretty standard 4-bet size there. And so I tanked for a while in Hollywood, kind of like asked the dealer to pull it in. And I wanted to make it like I was light and was looking to flat in position. And I think I probably tanked for like a couple of minutes, but it's a lot of those you just don't know how long the time is going when you're thinking. So I end up flatting. So the pot's about 8 million, and I got about 16, 17 million behind. So it's really another part of flatting there is it's going to be really easy to get stacks in on the flop.
Perfect amount.
If EC bets 4 million, I can just jam in 16 million on any flop, and so there's pretty much no flop I'm going to fold. The flop comes 10-9-7 rainbow. Which is probably one of the worst flops I can have for flatting there, because I mean, if he's 4-betting hands like 10-9 and stuff, and he checks. And
also, those are cards that he may put in your range also,
exactly,
kill some of the action.
Yeah,
it's not as bad as 2 kings coming on the flop, but
yeah. So he checks, and I figure he's either going to be check folding or check jamming to my shove, and I'm like, all right, if he checks jam, I'll snap call and we'll get it in. If he has 10-9, okay. I bet 5 million. Leaving myself like between 11 and 12, and he thinks for a while and he just calls, which was the least likely thing I expected him to do, and I had kind of no idea what he had. I eliminated sets because I figure in that situation, deep in the main event, he's just going to check shove with the set on that flop.
Right.
Or a hand like 10-9 or 9-7, maybe even a hand like 10-8, he's probably just check shoving. She check calls, and the pot's just huge at this point. It's about 19 million. And the turn's a queen, which is another horrible card because he could have queens. And he checks again, and there's about 18, 19 million in the pot maybe at this point. And I have like 11.5 back, and before I shove, knew I was going to shove, but I was trying to think of if there were any hands I could get called by that were worse, and I really didn't think there was any hands that were calling that were worse, but there's just so many river cards that are bad for me, and he's going to shove pretty much every river, and I'm going to have to fold, and I think I'm shoving to protect my hand on the turn. A lot of people.
There are no good rivers.
Yeah, the only good river is like a deuce.
Right.
I'm still going to have a tough decision on the river, so I jam, and as soon as he didn't snap call, it's the best feeling in the world, because I'm like, all right, he doesn't have a set of queens. And after about 20 seconds, I'm like, maybe I want to call now, and I really started to think he had kings, and I'm like, I'm kind of, for not going all in pre-flop, I'm kind of like, maybe I should have gone all in because I thought he had kings, but he ends up taking for like 5 or 6 minutes.
Wow.
And,
Did you consider that he could have jacks? Because I was reading online, and they were describing how this hand was taking a long time, and I thought it does correlate to having jacks at that point. Not that I would want to call with jacks, but that you've played them kind of cautiously. Now the hand in a sense has improved, but you have to know you're behind.
Yeah. I actually never really even thought of jacks when he was tanking. At that point, I'm just like, call. I got the best hand. And
no matter what, you know you're the best hand.
Yeah.
So.
And he ends up calling, and you hear me right away. I turn, you have kings, right? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, I have aces. He's like, you're good. And it's just like rush of emotion, like, oh my God, it's a huge pot.
What was interesting to me watching on ESPN was that what he said to you was, you've got nines, right? He put you on a set.
Oh, I didn't even hear that at the time.
Now, which makes it even funnier that he called, in the sense that he'd already eliminated hands that he could beat or hands where he had greater equity against. He was giving you credit because actually the way the hand came down, it did seem as if you had a set. It would totally be consistent with the way you played it.
Yeah.
So on ESPN he said, you got nines.
Yeah.
So making his call even more absurd.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about this at the time. A lot of people are like, if you have aces or kings there, and if I have kings, I have 2 more of his outs that he needs there with jacks and stuff. Mm-hmm. So ends up, we see the hands, I'm like, oh gosh, I have to fade now. Like,
right.
It's like not the hand I wanted to see. I was like hoping he had kings, obviously, and it's just like, ESPN takes like 2 to 3 minutes to get all the cameras set up and everything. I'm just like,
people don't realize they move the cards so the camera can focus in, and it's interminable there.
The dealer's waiting for them to tell he or she to turn. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Were you and Josh talking at all?
No, it was like,
John Duhamel?
I can't really even still remember what was happening at that point. All I remember is someone made a little clip on like 2+2, and it's like before the river card out, and I'm like smiling and looking, and then the river card's over.
Oh my God!
So you
didn't go over to the rail to talk to your
no.
people or anything.
It was. I had a couple of friends on the rail, and I was just kind of like, you don't know what to think at that point.
Karmically, you did everything right, because if you'd already started celebrating, then that'd be bad karma. But
I don't think that there's a player who blames you for your reaction. Like I think, and even now when you're telling the story, I'm thinking, I know the result, I know what he had, and I'm only looking at it through your eyes, and I'm thinking, yeah, he probably has kings. Because now this is not to say that John is not a worthy champion, and I think he played very well at the final.
Pretty well too.
But that call in that spot to me is a give up. It's like
or it's just the phrase "trying to win it" is overused, and people use that as a rationale for a lot of bad plays. But in this case, maybe it was a situation where he knows he's behind, and this really is a chance to win it, even though you can't win it with 15 people left. But you give yourself such a chance, because in that event, having a mega stack and the pressure you can put on people who are trying to make it into the final 9 and trying to move up each spot is so advantageous.
And he did. Like, he went from like 40 million to like 60 million without any problem at all.
He used the stack, and he used it all the way through. So I interpret it as, Yeah, I know I'm behind, but there's so much value in winning this event. I'll
Yeah.
just take my chances, I suppose. Did he? I mean, I assume you haven't discussed it with him, or there wasn't.
No,
much,
actually, we played EPT London main event, and the first table we were sitting right next to each other.
Really?
So like the whole time, I'm like, he was all in against another guy. I'm rooting for him to win. I'm like, no one's allowed to bust him but me now. So, well, actually, I did talk to him about it, and only thing I wanted to know is, was he going to call it off pre if I shoved? And he said he was, which I was very surprised with, that he would call off the 100 big blinds there with jacks in that situation.
Yeah, me too.
But now that we've seen how that played out, it's more credible than it would have.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Did you?
So it wouldn't have mattered how you played it, in other words.
yeah, exactly. So,
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. It's been a delight to have Matt Affleck with us. There's a lot more to talk about this World Series and previous ones. So we'll continue with part 2 next time.